Good morning, everybody. I had a question on YouTube, and it was from Jennifer. So this video is dedicated to Jennifer's question. She asked why why you didn't put glaze on this rim, and she said, what if you wanted to have glaze on the bottom of the foot ring? So I'm going to answer that question. It was a little lengthy to answer on the comments page, and I thought what a great video this would make, and that would be instructional. So when she asked the question, I believe that she was looking at the trinket box video, and here these are some of the trinket boxes. I keep my zipper pulls in there. And so I'm going to talk to you about how you need to plan for how it's going to be fired. So there are sometimes when you fire something that has glaze on the bottom, you have to put it on a stilt. And this is a stilt. And it has these little high temp wires that stick up out of it, kind of like a nail. And you have to set the pot on that and then put it in the kiln. So pretend that this breadboard is a kiln shelf. And I'm going to fire this, and it has glaze on the bottom. In order for it not to stick permanently to the kiln shelf, it has to be separated from it with one of these. So you put it on here, you set your little pot on there. The thing is, when you get it out, you've got these little, I call them boogers, but you call them something else, less offensive, I guess. But there are these little places that it makes on there, and you have to grind those off or sand it or do something in order for that to go away. So the best thing to do is leave the bottom of your pot unglazed. You can put wax on it to prevent the glaze from getting on there, and then fire it like that. So this trinket box, I didn't put glaze on any of the bottom. Some people would have put glaze on the inside of that foot ring, but I didn't see the point since so much of it was exposed. And then if you did glaze the inside of this rim on both parts, then if you fire the lid in place, it would be there forever. You'd have to hammer it apart and break it. So you have to leave those parts unglazed. Now, the reason that it's desirable to fire your pieces that have lids in place, because if you fire them separately, you'd set this one here, you put this one here next to each other on the kiln shelf. If they warp at all, even the slightest little bit, you're not going to get that really nice fit anymore, and there's no point in taking the chance. And this is what potters do. This is the way most of them do it. You can, and I think I said this in the answer that I gave Jennifer, you can glaze the rim if you want to. This pot, this is a cachet pot, and it has glaze on the gallery. This part right here is called a gallery. That's where the lid fits. I did not, however, glaze the bottom of this. And the reason is because when I fire it, it has to be able to sit on the shelf without sticking to the shelf, and I don't like those little boogers on there. I just hate to use those unless I absolutely have to. So I didn't fire the bottom, and it fits right in there. One of the reasons I went ahead and glazed the gallery was because I had a little chip right there, and I was trying to cover it up and patch it and everything. It looks better than it did when I put it in, but it's still, you can still see it. Let's see. Here is a butter bell. The bottom is not glazed. It was waxed. The inside of it, this part right here, is not glazed so that it could sit on the shelf right beside it. Now I did glaze the underside of this, and this rim is glazed. The entire inside is glazed, and it fits together like that. But that is how it got fired. Of course, you're taking a chance, but this isn't a real close-fitting lid, so there was room for, there was a little forgiveness there. So let's see, let me put that there. Typically, things like this, I have no glaze on the very edge, and I have no glaze on the gallery of this. And that was fired just like that. The bottom was not fired. That's under glaze, so it didn't stick to the kiln. So it sat just like that in the kiln. When it came out, perfect, no problem. Here's another example. This has no glaze around the gallery, the lid up here, and then this has no gallery. It just has a rim. So I was sure not to put glaze up too far, and it fired just exactly like that. And of course, no glaze on the bottom. Here's a little garlic keeper. Has a different kind of lid. It could have been, well, in fact, this one was fired with no glaze here. So it sat on the shelf right beside the body of it. And this has glaze on the rim and no glaze on the bottom. And they sat close to each other in the kiln. Is it important for them to be glazed together on the same shelf? Very important. If your kiln has temperatures that fluctuate, and say the top or the bottom or even the middle is even a couple of degrees or less different temperature than the rest of your kiln, say the wires are worn out and it doesn't heat evenly, if you fire this on the top shelf and then you fire this down below, you're going to get a different result on your glaze. So to get them as close to matching as possible when you fire them separately, they really need to be put in the kiln next to each other. So that's how that was fired. I think I made a video on this little garlic keeper. And this is there's my garlic. Okay, let's see. What other example? Here's an example of a little thing that was glazed, and there was glaze all over it. All over it. Even on the rim, even in the gallery, even on the bottom. So the way this had to be done, this had to be put on a stilt, and it has those little spots on the bottom. And this had to be fired also on a stilt because it couldn't be fired there because when that glaze melted, it would have fused it to the body. So it had to be glazed on this little guy, on this little tiny stilt. So it's the same type of thing, and there's 4 little tiny marks on the bottom of this. You just get a cleaner look and a more professional look if you wax. Let me show you this. This hasn't been fired at all. This is greenware. I'm going to wax around the rim of this, and I will also I will also wax this gallery. So it'll be like, let's see, it'll be like this one. I'll wax the gallery. If I put wax on it, it won't let the glaze stick to it. And then I will wax this foot ring, and I'll probably put glaze in here and glaze out here. But that way, this can sit on the kiln shelf just like that. I'll glaze the inside of this and the outside, no glaze on the rim, and it will sit just like this in the kiln perfectly. If it warps at all, the lid will still fit. So that's how that will go in there. Let's see, there was another one I was going to show you. Oh, here's one that's a little different scenario. This fits in here very similar to this. These are the same kinds of lids. See, no glaze on that little rim, but the difference is that this one doesn't have glaze up here. I like the sound of that. It sounds good when you close it. But this one does have glaze on the rim. So fired separately, because this has glaze up here. So when you're throwing a piece, you need to think about how it's going to sit in the kiln, how it's going to be fired. That is part of the planning, and it needs to be done so that they don't stick together. So like I said, you can put glaze all over it, but it isn't necessary because the raw clay is beautiful. In fact, this piece right here, I used a wax resist to create some design on it, and the raw clay by itself is beautiful. So when you have a little bit of it showing, it just looks more natural. Well, let's see. So let's look at bowls. When I'm building a bowl, I'm always leaving a little bit of a ring around here so that I can grab hold of that when I'm putting it in the glaze, and I can grab hold of it when I'm putting it out. It gives a nice little thing for it to sit on, and it looks nice. Let's check this one out. Here's an example of how I put glaze on the inside of this, but not on the rim, not in here, but it is covered with glaze here. The inside of this is covered with glaze, not on the rim and not on the foot ring. And I come up about 1/4 of an inch when it's when I have it on the wheel, when it's wet clay. I come up about 1/4 of an inch so that I have it just looks nice. It gives it a foot. It matches this, and it looks nice. Okay, well, there are 2 kinds of wax, and since we're on that subject, there is the kind of wax that, pardon my reach, there's a water-soluble wax that is made by well, a lot of companies probably make this, but this is kind of a liquid, and it's water-soluble. So you can put your pot on a banding wheel, or you can put it on your pottery wheel. So you use a brush. I have allowed this one to sit for too long and it's stiff. But you dip the brush in here and you just, coat that around there. Coat it around the edge. Do the same thing to this. Coat it around here. And just make sure that all the surfaces are covered with wax. And then when you dip it in the glaze, you can sort of sponge off any little bubbles of glaze that got on there. The other way of doing it, and this is in the method that I use, well, you need to probably have both because some circumstances will require something that you brush on. So over here, I'm going to take the camera over there. So I have a pretty cheap electric skillet, and I have put on one side, I have a couple of bottle caps put together to raise one side only. The reason I want to raise one side only for waxing is because I like to kind of ease my stuff in there. So let me get out of the light. So as you can see, the wax has kind of drifted down. It's deeper over here than it is over here. So that the advantage of that is when, let's see, let me use a mug or something. This one has tea in it, so I better be careful. So when I'm putting something down in here, I can sort of ease it in and slide it over till I get it deep enough here. This wax is not melted, so, but if it was melted, you would see the level of the wax come up here. So then I can sort of ease it in, turn it around, get a good coating of wax all the way around that bottom. And then I can ease it back up here and pull it out of the wax without making a splash. So that's how I do the melted wax with the electric skillet. I love answering these questions. It gives me great ideas for things that I guess I just, you know, we just kind of assume everybody knows these things, but it's obvious that there are a lot of beginners that are looking for videos on YouTube, and that's great. We all had to start somewhere, sometime, so don't be embarrassed or ashamed of asking a question, because I would be happy to answer it. This pot, here's a good one to show you, because the glaze shows up real well. I put this oatmeal colored glaze in here, and no glaze here, no glaze in the trough, and no glaze around the top of this. It's just like that all the way around. And this one got waxed in the skillet. And then there's glaze in here, but not on the foot ring. And so when it was fired, it was very gently, I very carefully waxed around there, but I made sure to not have any contact with glazed glaze on here, and else I would never have been able to get the lid off. So I hope that answers your question, Jennifer. Thank you for asking the question. And YouTubers, I'll see you soon. It's very cold here, and so it's too cold to go out to the studio, and we're supposed to get some real bad weather here in the next couple of days, but as soon as it warms up, I'll try to get another video out for you. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.